Welcome to Event Explorer, the podcast where we uncover the stories behind the world's most iconic festivals and events. I'm your host, Daniel Roth. Today we're headed to San Francisco to spotlight a festival that has become one of the biggest names in comedy, SF Sketchfest. Since its debut in 2002, this grassroots event has grown into a month-long celebration that's welcomed comedy giants like the Monty Python crew, Kids in the Hall, the cast of Mr. Show, Saturday Night Live legends, and iconic performers like Paul Giamatti, Tim Curry, and even the great Bill Murray. This episode, we sit down with SF Sketchfest co-founder David Owen to unpack how a local sketch comedy showcase became a mecca for comics and fans alike, from its punk rock roots in the Bay Area to creating one-of-a-kind tributes and surprise performances that only happen once and never again. This is the story of how SF Sketchfest became a comedy institution. Now, before we jump in, don't forget, follow Event Explorer on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review or a rating. Share this episode with your fellow comedy lovers and follow us on social media to stay in the loop on all upcoming episodes. Now, let's dive into SF Sketchfest with David Owen. Enjoy. Since 2002, SF Sketchfest has grown from a small six-show showcase into one of the world's premier comedy festivals. Over the years, it has brought together some of the most iconic names in comedy: Monty Python members, Kids in the Hall, the cast of Mr. Show, legends from Saturday Night Live. It's a place where you might see Paul Giamatti in an offbeat sketch, Tim Curry in a one-of-a-kind tribute, or even Bill Murray crooning with his band. So what makes SF Sketchfest so special? How did it become a mecca for comedy lovers and performers alike? Today, we are going behind the scenes with one of the people that started it all, David Owen, co-founder of SF Sketchfest. David, welcome to Event Explorer.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you here. Yes, watching the growth of the festival over the years and just hearing about it. You know, you see kind of flashes of it on TV. You hear about it in pretty much every comedy podcast that's ranked on like the top 100 list. And you just wrapped up 2025. We're about a month after. How did 2025 SF Sketchfest go for you?
That went great. It was a good year. We had a couple of we missed 2 years from the pandemic, and so we've been kind of building back since then. We did a festival in 2023 and 2024, but 2025 felt like we were really back, and that the audiences were back in full force, and there was just a really great buzz and vibe with the audience and with the performers and the staff. Like, everybody was just so happy to be there. So it was a really good year.
Kind of felt real again, or that the momentum is back. Yeah, I know it was a scary time for a lot of people in the live events industry that, will this come back, or, are we going to be all in the room together? And that's great to hear that it's kind of it's proving out to be that people need to be together and people want to be in a room. Especially comedy. I mean, comedy benefits from being in a room together. Even things, you can go to a very loose improv set, but you'll be your sides will be hurting by the end of it. I imagine that is a big piece of the success of SF Sketchfest, is people love being in that room with funny people and with the intention of having a good time like that.
Yeah, I don't think you can't really recreate that experience on television or on radio or podcasts. I think being in the room where the performance is taking place, and that's that feeling you just can't recreate. And also during the pandemic, people were doing a lot of live streaming. We did some of that too. We did some live stream stuff and some pre-recorded things that we put out there on the internet. They were fine, but again, just not the same experience as being in the room. And so, as much as streaming and a lot of comedians are kind of doing a lot of things on television or podcasts, or film, it's never going to be the same experience as having that audience number right in front of you, laughing in the same room with you. So that's our sweet spot, is just finding things that are going to be really great in the room, and without even really thinking about, someone could be listening to this at home or something like that.
I've noticed that there's a lot of people, that are in Hollywood comedy or on television, and they will make something even uniquely for the festival. Is it? It seems like that's maybe harkening back to maybe early days when you were at, a lot of these people were at Second City, they were at the Comedy Cellar. They were in these small rooms or they were in these rooms live. Do you feel that that's an appeal to people that have grown kind of so large in the industry that they're drawn to your event because of that it offers that the ability to reconnect in that way?
I think so. Yeah, I think that we're very kind of community based and we're independent, and we're very much focused on comedians as artists and the audiences that love them. And it's not really about the industry, and it's not really like festivals where people are going to be discovered and sign deals and meet agents and you know managers, and it's really like how they can experiment and do something in front of an audience that where they're not really feeling a lot of pressure. And so, someone like Fred Armisen said it was like coming to summer camp, because he's hanging out with his friends and they're getting to experiment and they're getting to just put things on stage in front of an audience without that pressure of, oh, this has to be perfect, and this is going to go out on television, or this is being scouted by all these executives. It's not that vibe. It's really just, let's play and let's have fun, and then the audience in turn sees that it's not this high pressure situation and they're more relaxed, and then it ends up just being a greater experience for everyone on both sides, the stage and the audience, because it's just relaxed and fun, and they're getting to try new things or experiment, or like do a stage reading of something that's never never been produced or anything. We have a lot of things like that where something just happens once on our stage. It's never going to happen again. And the people that were lucky enough to be there, or to seek it out and buy tickets, they're the ones who get to see it, and then it's done, and we move on to the next thing.
Speaking of the audience, based in San Francisco all these years, do you think that's, well, you know what? Take me back. I know you and your partners, Cole Stratton, Janet Varney, built this from, the idea of, well, you tell me, because it's a cool story, and it really is. It really has grassroots, and it has its lineage in the San Francisco comedy scene. But that's a scene that you helped I usher in a new age of, I would just say. So yeah, take me back. 2002, San Francisco. You guys were in college at the time?
No, we had graduated. We all met in college though. Cole Stratton, Janet Varney, and then there was another guy named Gabriel Diani, and the four of us started a sketch comedy group around 1999, 2000, and we were just playing in little coffee shops, or occasionally on a comedy club stage. Just we'd get like 5, 10, 15-minute sets on opening for somebody or doing this and that, and through that we started to meet other sketch groups that were on the scene, and they were all more experienced than us. There was the Meehan brothers. There was we were Totally False People, but the other groups were the Fresh Robots that had Al Madrigal, the Casper Hauser, the Meehan brothers, Please Leave the Bronx, and White Noise Radio Theater. And so we started to see these groups and meet them, and we were on the same bills with them in places, in these little tiny hole in the wall venues. And it just felt like there was a little bit of a scene, and Robin Williams would show up at these clubs and watch these groups and encourage them. And there was still kind of that, there was still a pretty good stand-up scene too. So there was, this was after the Holy City Zoo and all the kind of old famous comedy clubs, but people were still going to Cobb's Comedy Club and the Punchline, and stand-up was going strong. Like all these people had come out of the stand-up scene here, like Margaret Cho and Patton Oswalt, um, and at this time, I think most of them had moved away, but there was this sketch scene that we were part of, and we decided to rent a theater and team up with these other 5 groups, and we just said, let's just call it a sketch fest, because you can't get the theater for one weekend. We need to get it for the whole month. So we'll just call it SF Sketchfest, and it'll be a sketch comedy festival. And so we did that, and it was this one little venue downtown San Francisco, and that first year it just sort of took off. People bought, sold out almost every show, and people were just really into it. And then the 3 of us who were the main organizers of the thing we decided, let's try to do this again. And that just led to year 2, which we never even thought there would be a year 2, let alone 22 years. So it just sort of snowballed from there, and we just kept doing it and kept inviting more and more people.
The San Francisco audience was pretty receptive at that point too, huh? That they were kind of hungry for comedy, or there was maybe a dearth of it that had existed before.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there was we were just playing these little tiny rooms, but people seemed to be into it. And when we started the festival, we were very lucky to get a little feature in the San Francisco Chronicle, which came out right before we opened. And so that sort of like helped get the word out. And so people just, and then we knew people from the scene that liked to come see these groups. So, but maybe that article helped. And some of the guys in like the Meehan brothers, they knew Robin Williams. So Robin came and kind of helped sort of establish that this was something that he thought was cool. And so that, getting the word out about that created a little bit more buzz, I think. And so, yeah, it felt like the audience was really into it. And there were other groups. There was like Killing My Lobster had been around for a while. And but it felt like there was this kind of indie sort of almost punk rock sketch comedy scene happening. And it's not so much anymore. I mean, there are definitely groups today, but for some reason, and this was like pre-streaming, pre-internet. I don't even think we had cell phones. Like this was like way back. This is 2002. Like everything was just sort of analog, and people were appreciating seeing this live sketch comedy stuff.
And pretty quickly, so like 2003, Fred Willard's in now. We've got UCB, bringing kind of a main stage cast up. What were people just calling you saying, it made a name right away, and
No,
it became
no, like
no?
nobody
Okay, all right.
outside. Yeah, nobody outside of our little circle in San Francisco knew anything about us.
All right.
But we were just sort of like we felt like, okay, if we can do this with 6 local groups, let's invite groups from around the country. And so there had been other festivals like that. There still is a Sketchfest in Seattle that I think predates us by 1 year, and we had gone to that festival as a group, and were very much inspired by what they were doing, because they had groups. We met groups from Austin, Texas, and New York, and Chicago, and some of those groups came our second year, 2003. We kind of said like, hey, if you want to come to our festival, let us know, send us a tape. And but we also made a very big effort to try and get a couple of sort of headliners. And so we knew a guy who knew Fred Willard, and we kind of tried to get, like put in a word. And then I went down to LA and kind of went to this little place in Hollywood where Fred was performing with a sketch comedy group, and talked to him backstage. And then we used to work with Tom Sawyer, who was the booker of Cobb's Comedy Club at the time, and he helped us track down how to book the Upright Citizens Brigade. And then we got the Sklar brothers. And so that our first year, those were our 3 big headliners. And just the fact that we were able to get them to come was a big deal to us. We thought, oh, wow, we've got, Fred Willard was already a major comedy hero of ours. And to get his stamp of approval, just to talk him into coming, was a big deal for us. And so that second year, we moved to a bigger theater, a 200-seat theater. It did okay. Like it was a little bit like, 3 steps forward, 4 steps back, kind of. I think we kind of broke even the second year, just because we didn't know how much we could bite off and still chew. And I think, we had groups coming from all over the country. We had these big headliners. We were suddenly dealing with like, oh, we're paying for travel, we're paying for hotel. Like it became a bigger deal. And so we were learning as we went. Okay, let's do this. This worked. This didn't work. Let's repeat this next year. Let's not do this next year. But yeah. So that second year felt like it was there were a lot of growing pains, and it was a struggle to even break even. And so then we were like, okay, there's enough there that we feel like we can keep going into a third year.
And the response, was there industry response at the time too? From Fred's participation, did it seem like was there support there that, hey, you guys are onto something?
I think not necessarily in the industry, but like we definitely got attention locally. I think from the press. I think at the time, like there was the SF Guardian, the SF Weekly. There were a lot more newspapers back then, and then there was the Chronicle, and they were supporting and writing articles and reviews and sending photographers, and so that helped kind of build the audience in the Bay Area. But of course, having Fred Willard, someone who everybody in comedy knows, that helped kind of give us more cachet, so that the next year we could go, well, Fred Willard did it, and the Upright Citizens Brigade came and did it. So that sort of, they were like, okay, well, if Fred did it, then maybe it's legit, you know. So each time we would have somebody like that who's kind of more famous and established, it would help give us more credibility the next time around.
Amy Sedaris the next year, she was on TV at the time, I believe, her, just coming up there. So by the time you get to like 2009, 2010, now we have kind of A-list comedian names: Conan O'Brien, John Hodgman, Weird Al Yankovic. What were those kind of big moments that almost those pinch me moments probably for you, where the national attention, or at least nationally and internationally known comedians wanted to, or were signing up to join you?
Yeah, we've had pinch me moments every year, and those first, I mean, just getting Fred Willard the first time, and then someone like Amy Sedaris, and then I remember a really big deal for us, I think it was our third or fourth year, was getting one of the kids in the hall. We got Bruce McCullough, and kind of it was just sort of sending him emails and telling him about what we had done. And I think by this time we had Dana Carvey, and so we said, okay, we've had these people, and they had a great time, and just sort of talking them into coming, like, because it was, and they had to, like, someone like Bruce McCullough, who's he's a great artist, but he's a pretty serious guy. Like, he's not going to just get on a plane and come and do your little podunk event. So we had to kind of convince him that we really are passionate about this, and we want to do it right. And so he came, and then that led to getting another kid in the hall, and then another kid, and then we had all the kids in the hall. So there were these moments of it sort of snowballing, where by the time we were able to get guys like that, it helped open the door to get other people. And you mentioned Amy Sedaris. We started this thing called the SF Sketchfest Tribute, where we would honor someone with just saying, like, hey, we appreciate what you do. Come and do this conversation event. It's a tribute. It's honoring in your work and your career. And you don't have to prepare anything. All you have to do is show up and answer questions on stage and do a Q&A. And so Amy Sedaris did that. Dana Carvey did it. And then a few years into it, we managed to convince Paul Rubens to do it. And I think that was one of the biggest pinch me moments, was getting somebody like that to come and agree to be honored and come and sit on stage with us. And and so I think just having enough of those names, like, then there's enough there that you can go to someone like Conan O'Brien, or even eventually a few years later, someone like Gene Wilder, and who was promoting a book, and we said, well, we would like to do an event to honor you, and you can promote your book, and we'll show Young Frankenstein. And it just happened to work out so that he said yes, and next thing you know, there's Gene Wilder. So we were just very, very lucky, and also just kind of built each year saying, okay, we've had these people, if we can get those people, maybe we can get these people. And then it would go from there. And then people would enjoy it and want to come back too, which is another good thing, is we've had a lot of regulars who like to come year after year.
I think especially with people that you recognize from a television or film, you're not often in the room with them. So that's a huge draw, of course, and especially from a place that's going to be live, and it's not for recording, as you were talking about. The mood is different, the feel is different. As you progressed, SF Sketchfest, kind of, you began to put the name, it was an SF Sketchfest tribute to Conan O'Brien. So you started, it wasn't just hosting groups anymore. SF Sketchfest kind of developed its own voice. How did that come about? How did the idea of kind of creating your own programming instead of just hosting groups develop?
I think it was, there's some of these people, like Amy Sedaris was the first tribute. She didn't really have a touring act. She's not really a stand-up. She had an improv background, but it's not like she was regularly going around touring. And so this was just sort of an idea of like, how can we get somebody that we really like and admire and is really funny, but isn't necessarily a stand-up comedian or a sketch comedian? And then, so we said, well, let's do a conversation. Let's do a Q&A event. But we wanted it to have a reason to be, as opposed to just come and do an evening with an evening of conversation. So we branded it the SF Sketchfest Tribute, just to kind of give it a thing, give it a title, give it a structure, and have it really be about honoring someone. And so yeah, it was just like, okay, let's just call it that. And there wasn't really any deeper thought to like getting the brand name out there. It was just like we had to call it something. But then over the years, we've also kind of cultivated different ideas with performers where we'll work with them to figure out a structure of an event, where we're sort of producing it, but they're showing up and being involved. Like we've done these live reads. We just did a live read of the movie Airplane, and we put the whole script together, and we had a musician on stage, and we did slides and stuff, and then they just show up and they read the script, a cast and the creators. So that's sort of a collaborative thing where we're saying, okay, we're going to do all the work. All you have to do is show up and read. And that's, it's a great way to showcase somebody without them having to put together an act and rehearse,
And it gives them this kind of like jam mentality or so, that, yeah, I can bring my skill and you've got the material and something good's going to
Yeah, and
happen.
they don't really have to prepare, and they're going to go on stage for an hour and a half and get huge laughs and get that immediate feedback from an audience, and then they're done with it, and they've had a great time. And so that we've tried to think of things like that, where somebody who's not necessarily, someone touring with an act, that's something that they can do, and get big laughs and have a great time and be a part of the festival.
So to support this content, the organization has had to grow, I imagine. How many venues are at this? Is it 6 venues at this point, or more?
More. It's kind of gone up and down. I mean, I think in one year we had, 15 to 18 venues, and I think we're more around 8, 9, 10, 11. And some of them we're only in for a few nights, but then there's other venues where we're there like almost every night, certainly every weekend. Our festival runs for about 18 days over 3 weekends, and we have, probably about 6 main hub venues, but then there's also venues that are just doing one-offs or 2 or 3 events here and there. And yeah, it's grown. We've had to, like, the staff has grown. We have a seasonal staff who we bring on, and the infrastructure of everything has had to grow along with it. But it's just been a steady trial and error, learning as we go. Like we just, our background, like Janet and I were in the theater department. Cole Stratton was a cinema major. So we kind of we came at this as from the artistic side of it as being performers and putting on shows. But then we just learned the business side of it just by doing it one year after the other, and making, tons of mistakes, but still just learning each year. Okay, let's do this better and let's not do that anymore. And so it's just, yeah, we've had to kind of try to keep up with the.
And now I imagine, what's really cool about seeing your lineup there is obviously all the names that we've talked about, this Bill Murray this year and the cast of Airplane, Catherine Hahn, amazing. But there's also a huge list of up and coming artists that, I would imagine are knocking down your door or, wanting to be seen at your festival. What's the kind of curation process there, or is there? And then, how do you kind of, how have you used your mouthpiece as a way to get new artists' attention in that way?
Well, the emerging artists, the up and coming artists, that's the first festival. That's all it was. The first few festivals, and it's a huge part of why we do it, is to have that outlet. To have that space for them to grow and find an audience and build an audience. So, as much as we love having big names, like, it's equally important to us to have to be able to showcase and spotlight all of these emerging performers. And at first it was just sketch groups, and then we evolved. There's like, okay, then we added an improv, and then we added stand up, and then musical comedy, and like short theater pieces, films. And so now, like, what each year we do a call for entries where people send us clips of their act, and we have a curation process where we review everything, and we invite the ones that knock us out, and or that we think show some real promise, um and there's some of the best shows in the festival, and I'm always encouraging people to not just go to something that with a celebrity, but also to go to one of these showcase shows, because they're going to see groups that are going to be super famous in a few years. Or we've had people that are started out as just these sketch groups. Like there was one called the Tenderloins in our second or third year, and now they're the Impractical Jokers. Like those guys went on to be those guys. And there have been other, stand-ups that were totally unknown and have gone on to, to be major players. So yeah, it's a big part of why we do it, is to have, because that's who we are. That's who we were. We started as those kids who were writing sketches and rehearsing in our living room and putting it on a stage wherever we could find a stage. And so we always want to offer that opportunity to groups and performers who want to be a part of the festival.
I imagine they're kind of teaching you as well, to, or helping to guide comedy's evolution, right? I mean, how has the festival, the offerings have definitely evolved with, now you have podcasts and different kind of takes on music and cinema. How has the programming evolved over these years to be more inclusive of kind of different voices?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've broadened the genres that we present, because as I mentioned, it was started as just sketch comedy. So we've kind of just for a long time it was just what makes the three of us laugh, what are we passionate about. But when we started it, we were all in our early 20s, and now we're much older. So we're getting tapes now from groups that are in their early 20s, and so it's a very different generation now, and a lot of it is like stuff that you see on TikTok or YouTube, and it's a different sensibility than what we used to do, but we're constantly learning and constantly like being exposed to stuff that might not necessarily be our favorite thing, but but it's obviously very, very funny to an audience of 20 somethings. So we're trying to, have a little something for everybody, but it also still has to connect with us in some way. Like it has to fit the sensibility of the festival, and it has to be A, funny, and B, something original about it, so not something derivative and that you're going to see anywhere and everywhere, but something that's kind of new. So yeah, we're always trying to like mix it up, see what we can do that's different, see how many different voices and we can bring to the table, and feature as many different people as we can. That's what we're really trying to do.
Amazing, and you are doing it. I mean, yeah, there's dozens and dozens of artists. This year we've got the variety of venues. From an audience perspective, what's the what is it now? 15 days, but if you were going to spend a weekend in San Francisco over the festival, what's the experience like, or kind of how do you recommend people make their entry into experiencing it now?
Well, it's kind of it's not a festival where you can buy a pass and just go to. It's not that kind of festival where you just buy one pass and go see everything. So you can kind of curate your own festival. So we really just recommend people kind of figure out, okay, like pick something where it's some famous person that you've heard of and you want to see them live, but also try a different genre, like go see an improv show. Maybe you haven't heard of the group, but trust us, these guys are really, really great. Or go to see we have these showcase shows where you're going to see 3 or 4 different sketch and improv groups in the same night, each doing about 20 minutes. So you're going to get a little taste of several different styles. So that's, I think, a really good way for people to kind of check out the festival is to pick just a few very, very different things, as opposed to just saying, I'm only going to see stand-up or I'm only going to see famous people. So that's always what I would recommend, is just to kind of mix it up, try a little variety.
Great, great. Well, it sounds like 2025 was a huge success. Just, looking towards the future, and it's cool to see the evolution, and that there's just there's a great confidence in knowing that, how open the group is, and that the festival can adapt. The festival can take in new voices and give them a stage, and then, as you're saying, a decade down the line, they're in syndication on True TV or Peacock. It's just amazing. Um, as you look forward, you do kind of have that optimism that comedy's in a good place, and you can take some pride in having a little bit of a part in it there.
I don't know how much of a part we have in it other than on a local level. And I mean, in terms, yeah, I mean, I think we bring a lot to the city of San Francisco and the Bay Area. Like, I think if I wasn't part of this, I would want to go to it because I like the programming. I'm biased, but I like the programming. It's stuff that I would want to see. But looking ahead, no, I do feel like it's in a really good place. And I didn't. If you'd asked me that 2 or 3 years ago, I don't know, my answer would have been different because the pandemic was very rough. And we did 1 year of nothing. We just did a live stream, and then the next year we had to postpone the entire festival again because it was right when the Omicron variant was hitting and everyone was getting sick. And so, and then the first year back that we did an actual festival, it was, everybody was fully masked, and it was just awkward and weird. But it was still good, and it was still funny, and people had a good time. But it felt like a little bit of the magic was gone, and I think that was just people getting through that horrible time. And then the next year, 2024, was much better. But then this year, it just felt like, oh, that buzz that we used to feel is back. Like it just feels really, really good, and it made me feel good not just about the state of live events, but the state of comedy, that people absolutely need this. Um, and when we started the festival, when we were planning the very first festival, which started in January of 2002, 9/11 happened. We were planning it in September of 2001, and that was such a horrific event that we thought, oh God, we're putting together a comedy festival. But then January came and people needed it. They came and we sold out all these shows, and so we've our festival has existed through just a lot of good times and a lot of bad times, and like politics and natural disasters and pandemics and financial upheavals and the big crash of 2008. Like, our festival's been there for people, and provided this outlet for people to come and laugh in a room with other people, and I think that's a very healing thing for people. And so I think also, and that might have a little something to do with why there was a good buzz this year, is people really needed it. And that might have been a reaction to politics and what's going on in the country and in the world. But looking ahead in terms of comedy, yes, I think there's always going to be a place for it. And I think, there's always going to be an audience for it in San Francisco because it's such a great city. The audience, that's the other thing, is performers love San Francisco audiences because they're just like, they're some of the best, and they don't have to work very hard to get a laugh out of a San
Their
Francisco
game,
audience.
yeah, yeah,
Their game,
yeah,
yeah.
and yeah, there's a spirit to the town, as well. So yeah, and it's just, I think it's not maybe the recognized city for comedy, from versus a New York or a Boston or Chicago, but it's there, and it's, people like you that kind of take the risk and create the space for it to continue to grow. So, just really cool to hear about the progress of the festival, that you continue to bring people together, and the impact it has on people's lives. I mean, there's comedy heroes that you can tell that they're coming, to do something that maybe would make them uncomfortable. and to create a space that happens, that is such a gift to your audience, that and a gift to them, that it's not just for selling tickets, it's for creating these moments. So yeah, really cool to hear about how you make that happen. So I appreciate you being here today. Well, thanks for the deep dive into Sketchfest. I love that it is this great place for comedy. It continues to thrive. Comedians get to take risks, be themselves. For all the listeners, there's a lot of great content out there. Podcasts recorded. There's some YouTube videos, and you guys put out a good track record, kind of all the great work you've done on your website. So I encourage everyone to kind of tune in, check it out. If you haven't been, plan to make the trip next year to SF Sketchfest, because you can't get it anywhere else, and it will be special. So, David, thank you so much for joining me today. I'll push everything out to make sure people are aware, and then we will continue to watch your rise and all the great magic that you make, the magic moments you make in San Francisco. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Dan, for having me. I really, really appreciate you having us on.
Fantastic story. Thanks, David. Take care. That was David Owen, co-founder of SF Sketchfest, giving us an incredible behind-the-scenes look at one of the most beloved comedy festivals in the world. Whether it's a surprise Bill Murray appearance, a tribute to comedy icons, or the next big star testing out fresh material, SF Sketchfest is where the magic happens. It's not just about laughs, it's about creating a space where artists can take risks, audiences can connect, and moments are made that you can't experience anywhere else. If you love this episode, please subscribe to Event Explorer and leave us a review. Share this with someone who loves comedy, festivals, or live performance, and don't forget to check out past SF Sketchfest shows online. And start planning your trip to San Francisco for next year's festival. Until next time, thanks for joining us. Happy exploring.